All right, hello everybody, and welcome back to the Double M Radio Gamescast, episode number 41. As always, I am your host Ryan, and I'm joined by my lovely cohort of co-hosts, Wyatt.
He's still coughing.
All right, that's Wyatt. We got Tess. All right, that's
Here.
Tess. Brett.
Hello, Wyatt, mute yourself, you fool.
All right, Alex.
Hi.
And if you didn't know from the title,
Oh no, it's contagious.
oh my god.
If you're gonna cough, mute yourself.
Nobody here has COVID. They're just having food stuck in their throats, which I don't actually know if that's true because we're not in the same room. So no one knows.
Could all
But
be
I
liars.
can confirm.
all right, great. This episode, if you haven't read the title, is our 2020 awards of essentially the award show that, like, the Game Awards that would happen at the end of 2020, we do in January, so that way we can actually talk about everything that came out in 2020 and not just things that came out before December. So we got a lot of things to talk about, and of course, because we are a small show that isn't full-time and we're all just kind of doing this because we like to, we can't play every game that comes out, so we're including any game we played during this year, not just games that came out this year, aside from the final Game of the Year award. So you can, any game you played this year, you can write down and talk about, but the Game of the Year is something that came out from this year. Of course, with a higher preference for things that came out this year, but because this year's been a little crazy, not all of us have played a lot of stuff from this year, which we'll talk about. But yeah, this is going to be our first big awards thing, and we got a lot of awards to go through. Y'all ready? You ready to jump in?
Oh,
Here we
boy.
go.
Let's go.
Wahoo, as Mario says.
All right, great. So our first category, our first award, we're going out with the big hitters, and I think this time most memorable. Maybe not most memorable because of the game itself,
Uh-huh.
but I think everyone is gonna remember Cyberpunk 2077 for a long time,
Oh yeah.
even if you haven't played the game, because of the impact it's had on the industry.
I would argue that there's a lot of memorable moments in it.
Yeah, but I
Especially,
don't
like,
I don't
some
think
of the
this would have
missions and
gotten
stuff.
my most memorable award if it wasn't for all the stuff.
That's fair.
That's not to say it's not a memorable game, it very much is, but I think at this point it's hard to argue that you're not going to remember Cyberpunk for the next 10 years because of all the crazy stuff that happened this year. Aside from Brett.
Yeah. I'm sorry for being weird, guys. Everyone else put Cyberpunk except for me.
Hey, it's not for everyone.
I just don't. I'm gonna wait until the game is in a release state for me to buy it.
Yeah.
But
fair. That's fair.
I played the older Ace Combats this year, and Zero is really good, and I'm not gonna waste time talking about it. Other than that,
All right.
Don't need to explain.
And yeah, we will talk about choices occasionally, but not for too long. We'll have a minute
Yeah.
timer because we do want to get through. We've got 40 of these at this point, 34, and we want to get through as many as possible. So next we've got biggest surprise. Who's ready with their biggest surprise?
I'll go. I put Astro's Playroom just because I think no one was expecting anything from this pack-in game for the PS5 is this cute little tech demo. They're like, oh, this will be cute, and then just kind of move on. But honestly, it was so much better than I was expecting because it's a fully fledged platformer with a lot of really fun little mini games that kind of show off the DualSense controller, and there's just a lot of PlayStation stuff going on. Like you have the little robot characters acting out scenes from The Last of Us or God of War and stuff like that, and it's just really cute and really, really well made.
Acting out scenes from The Last of Us 2.
Yeah, I think for me, so I put in 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim, which is a game that I did not know was coming out until it was a day from releasing. And then it quickly became one of my best games of the year after that because it was so interesting. But for those who don't know, it's a game made by Vanillaware, who did Dragon's Crown and Odin Sphere, which is a PS2 game that is really well known. And they've been working on this game for like 10 years with a smaller team of their studio, and it finally came out and is really, really interesting.
So good.
It's extremely unique. It's one of the most unique things I think I've played in a long time. And it was a huge surprise because I didn't know it was happening because the game got no marketing.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Literally nothing. Yeah, who else is ready?
I'll go. I say with a
Do
question
it.
at the end. All right, fine. I so I'm gonna say this technically counts, even though it's in the what did you say it was pre-release alpha
Yeah,
beta
early access is fine.
early access. But Baldur's Gate 3. Yeah, I was really psyched for the in my opinion, what's the closest a video game has gotten and probably can actually get to playing D&D, at least as far as that series goes for me. But I had not seen or heard anything about it since one of the first trailers showing that Cthulhu-esque monster, and I found out it was out, and here it is, and I'm happy and about to buy it.
Yeah, I think Baldur's Gate 3 was surprising for a lot of people because it came out in early access really quickly after being announced. So, good pick, good pick. All right, Tess or Brett, you both are on the spot. Pick someone.
Tess, you want to go?
So what are we doing? Biggest surprise?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I put it in last minute because you said that we could put games that we just played this year and not games that came out this year. So I put Until Dawn because I played it last year, and I honestly wasn't really thinking anything of it because I was like, whatever, has famous people in it. It's probably trash, just good because there's famous people in it. But then I played it and I was just like, oh, this is really, really, really good. And then I platinumed it on PlayStation.
Oh,
Oh my.
wow.
Wow. Okay.
I went all out. I mean, the easiest way to platinum it was to make sure that they all live first, like because those trophies are easier to get than the die first. But I was just like, nah, I'm gonna kill them and then make them live, so I feel better about myself.
The reverse Undertale treatment.
Yes,
God.
I was just like, I can't leave it. I can't just kill them all and then leave the game.
Understand.
So
Yeah.
I did it the opposite way. It took me longer than it would have if I did it the regular way, but whatever.
All right, Brett, you're on the spot now.
I saw Outer Wilds, I think at last year's Game Awards. I think it was nominated, and I was like, I don't even know what that is. That just sounds like the other game that came out that had almost the same name, but
Outer Worlds, yeah.
different. Yeah.
Yikes. Yeah,
and
not the
then
same thing.
not the same thing at all, because I think like right at the beginning of last year, I started playing Outer Wilds, and I was like, oh, this is kind of cute, and then it was like automatically, even though like unfortunately, I played at the beginning of the year, so other things kind of like topped it just because of their more recent. But it became like one of my favorite things like immediately. Like I was really surprised how tight and just like very very genuine the whole game is for being something that it's just like it's some artsy fartsy student kind of stuff. It was really good.
Yeah, Outer Wilds is incredible. It's a great game. All right, moving on to best mini game. There's lots of games with mini games. Less this year than usual, I think, because we didn't get like a Mario Party or anything. But we did still get some good ones. So we got 2 Last of Us Part 2s on here. Why don't you two start us off?
Yeah, the guitar.
Yes.
Just because, as someone who used to play guitar, it's probably the closest, it's probably the best way to translate playing a guitar on a controller that I've seen. It was really well done. There's so many chords that you can pick from, and there's tons of YouTube videos of people just playing, whatever on it. There's so many different songs you can play, and also just it narratively is super interesting, and just how it ties in with everything. And it's like the more you play it, the more like emotional it makes you feel, which I've never seen from a mini game before.
Yeah.
That like really ties into the narrative in some way, and it was just super super ingenious, and yeah, I loved it.
Anything to add, Tess?
I pretty much said it. I just think it's really cool.
Yeah, it uses the touchpad, right, to strum on.
Yeah.
Yep. And then
Yeah,
you
that's
press,
super
and then
unique to
you
me.
I can't remember what you have to hold the stick in certain directions, and then holding down face buttons it's super cool. And again, as someone who's actually played guitar and knows how to play a little bit of guitar, it surprisingly, for having you hold a controller, it felt a lot like playing a guitar. It was really weird, but it works really, really well.
Yeah. All right. You got some sword training, Brett, that you did in Tsushima?
I didn't play a lot of games that had mini games, and the sword training in Tsushima is literally like the simplest like baby just like mush button before time run out game ever. But like when you get to ones where it's like 8 in a row or something of just like all the different buttons that you have to fill out before Jin finishes a sword swing, it's so satisfying. Like I think one of like the last ones with the most buttons in it, like I just like straight up like jumped off the couch and I was like, oh yes.
Yeah, I remember the
It
first time I
just
got
felt
one of
so
those
good.
right in a single attempt was like the
Oh yeah,
best moment of my playthrough.
it feels really
You
good.
you feel so powerful.
You feel
Yeah.
like a samurai almost.
Oh, I'm surprised you didn't talk about the haikus. They were also a very unique minigame
They
type thing.
were also very good, but they were less game
Yeah.
than
Fair.
the sword things.
All right. So for my pick, I just picked every minigame in Yakuza 7 because there's way too many of them and they're all super in depth.
Sure.
But the two highlights I think are the business management minigame, where you
Business
just
management?
manage a business and
What?
you buy and sell properties, you manage your employees. It's super fun
What?
to make the best like rice cracker shop in the town, of course. And you can also like buy and sell theaters. You buy and sell property. You manage a lot of money, and there's also, of course, a press conference minigame within that minigame for you to apologize to
Oh.
your investors when you do badly. So,
Oh.
Oh my god.
but the highlight is definitely Dragon Kart, which is basically a slightly toned down version of Mario Kart, down to like having power ups and boosters and everything with multiple tracks in the game that you can just play Mario Kart essentially. It's got upgradable carts. It's super fun. It's very, very fun for being a minigame.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's great. All right, moving on to our worst voice acting award. Our first worst award of the night. And I'll start us off here because Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate, game I played this year, very quick because there's no actual voice acting in this game aside from the cats. The cats are voice acted. Your palicos are voice acted, and if you play as a prowler, which is where you play as the cat, you hear the cat sounds constantly. And the problem is that they were originally recorded for 3DS, so they're not very high bitrate.
Oh dear.
So
Ow.
all you hear is constant,
Oh.
very tinny meowing.
Ugh.
It's
This is
really
the
not that
first time
bad,
that-
but it's ooh.
This is the first time
That's-
cats have been considered for voice acting.
Yeah, I mean it's bad, and it's not because of the cats. The cats are doing a great job with their roles.
they're earning their pay.
It's the it's definitely the fact that they were compressed down to fit on a 3DS.
Compress
That
the
they're like
cats.
that.
No.
Ugh.
Just squish the cat.
I'll follow up with that. Mine was a Watch Dogs Legion, just because they had to voice so many different characters, which they could only get a certain amount of voice actors, and they had to pitch shift and do all this sorts of stuff to various voice actors to try and make different voices. And sometimes it worked, and sometimes it doesn't. You have characters that have voices that don't match them at all, and then you just get weird deliveries that don't really work. There's a lot of lip syncing issues most of the time. Yeah, just
Oof.
kind of a mess. I think they did the best that they could considering how many different characters they have to voice. But on its own, no, it's rough.
All right, Brett,
Did
you got
not-
some fitness journeys to talk about us with?
I did not.
Oh.
I will say I did not play Ring Fit Adventure, but when you are sitting in the same room as someone who is playing Ring Fit Adventure, you too are playing Ring Fit Adventure. And I gotta say, I don't know the character's like physical form. He could be completely ethereal. I do not know, but just that I'm trying to think of nice words to say.
The Ring Man?
The ring man that goes,
The Ring Man.
great, amazing. Like I
Oh,
just
yeah.
kind of want. I wish he did have a physical form so I could break him because I don't like. Maybe I just like if I was like working out or something, I would prefer something a little more different than that. But he just seems very annoying, and I did not like that at all.
It's very Navi from
Yeah,
Legend of
yeah,
Zelda.
Ooh, that's rough.
yeah.
That's rough. All right. So next, we're going to talk about the Swimming in Sevens Award. All right, the Swimming in Sevens Award is the award for the most 7 out of 10 video game, which is
Oh.
a like generally AAA game that's like okay. It's not great. It's not bad. It just kind of exists. It's not too offensive, and I think there are two very good candidates up here from each of us having voted for a game and two of us voting for the same game. So Brett and Tess, you guys voted for Black Ops Cold War.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. There's not
Synchronized.
too much. Not too much more to say.
It was
than,
like such a disappointing. Yeah.
I don't. I don't know about you, Tess, but I was like really looking forward to a Cold War game because there's a lot of like cool things that they can do with that. And it just kind of did okay. It's not terrible, but it's not.
Did
Yeah.
hey, the zombies was kind of cool.
Meh.
Zombies are kind of
like,
cool.
Yeah.
I like don't get it. Like the first zombies were like just so easy to get. The Easter eggs were easy to figure out. I don't know what the hell I'm doing in this game. Like half
There's
the
also
time.
just not many maps,
Not
right?
at all.
Like
one.
there's one
Yeah.
zombies map and like 8 multiplayer maps.
It's
I do
8
think-
total, and that's including zombies.
Really,
I did
I'm
really,
pretty sure. Yeah.
yeah, I did really like the campaign though.
I haven't played the campaign yet.
I gotta
and
say,
I
from
know-
what I played in the beta was really fun. But
and
I'm definitely
I know
gonna play
Brett
the campaign.
hasn't finished the campaign, but
I won't because it kept crashing, and I don't care.
and I
enough to
understand
finish
that,
it.
and I know I understand that, but I think for a Call of Duty campaign, there is a surprising amount of using your brain and not shooting anything.
so maybe the
'Cause there's
campaign
a-
itself isn't a Swimming in Sevens, but the rest of it is.
No, well, that's. I mean, if you let me finish what I was going to say, that's why I think it is a good like Swimming in Sevens awards because it has some areas, it has some modes and areas that are really great, and others that aren't, which kind of build up to a perfect 7.
Hey, Wyatt, you know another game that does that?
oh
Watch
my
Dogs
goodness!
Legion.
Wow!
Wyatt and I both voted for Watch Dogs Legion. My reason is, and despite the fact that I really enjoy Watch Dogs Legion, I know it's not because of the game. It's just because I enjoy what it's about. And I think a lot of the gameplay is really solid, and a lot of the like base systems there are really good. But then there's just not that layer of just extra stuff they need to make it work.
I
really
think
well.
The most consistent thing about the game is its inconsistency, which is kind of
Yeah.
an overused statement, but I don't know how else to describe it. There are some parts where I'm like, oh, you hit it like nail right on the head. That's great. And then other areas, it's like, what? Why?
It's just confusion.
Why would you do that?
Yeah, it's
Um,
definitely a game that's like
yeah.
that basically the entire way through. Plus the fact that like I couldn't play it for a solid 2 months because a save
yeah, there's
corruption
that.
issue, and then yeah,
It's kind of like what I was saying about the voice acting. You know, for some of the voices and characters, it fits really well, and others it just
ups and
doesn't.
downs, ups and downs.
Ups and downs.
All right, so after that we got best boss fight.
Oh boy.
All right, there's some big contenders in here. So I'll get, I think, mine out of the way first because it's the one that's probably least like a traditional boss fight. It's the hordes from Days Gone. So I played Days Gone this year, and the hordes in Days Gone are just giant groups of zombies that kind of move like a living organism. They have like a linked neural net intelligence between them, which is why they work like that. And it's a super fun boss dynamic because you have to like use the environment and block them off and corral them into certain areas. I just think it's a really, really clever way to show hordes in a zombie game, whereas normally it's just like a bunch of zombies. These actually act like a horde, like a swarm of bees or something essentially that is working under one mind. So it's really, really fun to fight them. So yeah, that's my pick.
Speaking of zombies, I'll go next. I had the Rat King from Last of Us 2, which is like one of the few like actual things in that game you can call a boss fight.
Yeah.
It's this giant, gross thing, this giant zombie thing that chases you around in a
Giant
hospital,
gross.
and it as you fight it, like more zombies kind of like crawl off of it, and it like breaks into several parts, and it's really really gross. But I think what makes it the best boss fight for me, is like the boss fight itself is fun, but the build up to the boss fight was also awesome because it gives you all these little hints to this creature before you actually like fight it. And there's a moment where you think you're going to escape the hospital that it's in. You're like, oh, everything's fine, it's fine, and then no, it just comes in out of nowhere, and it was terrifying, and it was really gross and scary, and I liked it. It was a lot of fun.
Very cool.
Very cool.
Very cool.
I guess if we're moving down the line, I'll go then. My pick for best boss fight of the games that I played was Pixie from Ace Combat Zero, and most fights against other planes in playing games is you fill them up with enough explosives and then they stop flying and then death. But somehow they managed to make one that looks like a prototype space shuttle with a giant laser on the back of it have like 3 phases, and the
Oh,
whole game has night connotations, and then like the last phase of it is like jousting because you can only damage him through the front intakes or something with your machine gun. So you have to fly straight at him while he's flying straight at you, and it makes it so dramatic when there's like flamenco guitar going crazy in the background and stuff. Oh, it's beautiful.
Man, I love Ace Combat.
It's beautiful. I have so much more because I played so much of it this year. So
Hey Tess, you've got a boss for us.
I do. I have the Icon of Sin from. Oh my god.
Doom Eternal.
Doom Eternal. As soon as I said it, I was like, huh? To be honest, my reasoning is just because I think he looks really cool.
Hey, that's
Hey.
good enough.
Icon of Sin is my my favorite boss fight. Actually,
I think
at that game you're so like overpowered, and that whole fight is just so hype. There's
Yeah.
so much going on.
There's so
It's
much.
awesome.
There's so much going on in that fight. Honestly, I think all the boss fights in that game are pretty cool.
Yeah, certainly. All right, so now every good has a bad, and we've also got some bad boss fights here. There were some real stinkers this year, at least of the games we played. So let's go ahead and start out with, I'm gonna pick on Alex because you didn't have a best boss fight.
hello. I have trouble being an optimist sometimes. This is one of those times. Oh,
Give us your worst then.
my worst boss fight, and this pretty much goes for a majority of the boss fights in the game. The cyberpunk boss fights, because they just feel like 2 variations of bullet sponge, either fast and comes at you with mantis blades, or slow and stands there and fires missiles and things at you, and it's just
Yeah.
it's one of the more letdowny things of cyberpunk, in my opinion.
Yeah.
That it's they aren't, it's role playing, it's not gonna be boss fight stuff, but it's just still thought it was a pretty wet blanket on my enjoyment of the game
Yeah.
thus far.
And for Tess, we're not doing spoilers, so I don't want you to say the name of your thing, but it's the specific boss fight, Tess, I think we all agree is pretty bad.
I thought I
Mm.
was gonna feel better.
No,
I thought I was gonna feel some sort of.
no closure for you.
But then something happened, and I was just like,
I haven't actually gotten there yet. So,
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, you're gonna fight this character like an hour into
Oh,
the
yeah.
game,
I
but the
know I'm
boss
gonna
fight
fight the
itself is
character.
very disappointing.
something happened before fighting him that just made
which
it.
we won't talk about.
Yeah, just made it unenjoyable, and I thought I was gonna feel better, and then I
If you
defeated
spoil
him,
it, I'm
and I was
leaving.
just like, and then I was like, okay.
Did you use
I don't feel
Comrade's
better.
hammer?
Hey Wyatt, you got a
What?
boss fight that I remember you complaining very adamantly to me about
Yes.
as soon as it happened.
Has anyone here other than me played the Pathless?
I enjoy watching it being played.
Cool. Okay. So the Pathless is a boss rush game, kind of. It's a boss rush game with a bunch of like puzzles in between each boss, and I put there's I think there's like 4 or 5 of them in the entire game. I put the first one on here, Cernos, just because not that he's particularly worse than the other ones, but just because it marked the moment in the game where the entire game started going downhill for me.
Oh,
Because right before the first boss fight, I was playing the game. I was like, oh my god, this is awesome. This is really cool. I'm totally digging this. And then I got to the boss fight, and it all kind of fell apart because it's the kind of boss fight that starts off wonderfully, and then it devolves into a boss fight that uses none of the game's like
Mechanics.
mechanics or strengths, right? Because the whole game is like there are talismans all over the place, and you
Mm.
have to shoot them to increase your speed and stuff like that. But when the boss fight starts off really great, where the monster's running away from you, and you have to like, and it's kind of firing kind of like bullet hell type of projectiles at you, and stuff like that. Um, and you have to kind of catch up to it and shoot different parts on its body. Awesome. And then once you hit all the parts on its body, it goes to this really boring tiny arena where you just walk around it and dodge attacks until you shoot the thing.
So just a
It's
poorly designed boss fight.
so yeah, it is so boring. And then I just realized, oh, they're all going to be like this, aren't they?
Well, you know what else is so boring? The boss fight that I chose, which is there's a Yakuza 4 has a really really awesome finale where you have like 4 characters that you've played throughout the game and you do all these like final fights at once, and it's really cool except for one of them, which is you play this character named Tanimura, you're fighting a dude, and this dude, he doesn't do anything but run around and shoot a gun at you while his goons attack you. Super boring, and it's the last one. It's
That's
just
not good.
after a series of like 4 really good fist fights, and then you get to that dude, and he just runs around and pea shooter blasts you. It's super boring. All right.
That's a shame. No.
Hey Brett,
Um,
you're speaking,
yeah.
so you're next.
I love me some Ghost of Tsushima, but we talked about this in the Games Club episode that we did. But Koten Khan, compared to every single other fight in that game with like the solo samurai and Ronin that are all around, none of the Koten Khan fights really do it for me at all. They're all pretty boring, and there's nothing like cool and scenic about them. Even like the Ronin fights that you have to find or anything like that. They don't feel like dramatic duels. They're just kind of like, oh well, the
aw.
game has to stop to give you
Yeah.
the video game boss fight.
There's,
Unfortunately,
there's no interesting like attack patterns or
no.
mechanics. He just throws ads at you the whole time.
Yeah.
It's really disappointing.
All right, moving on. We're back to some positives. After that downer,
Yay!
best first impression. So I'm gonna kick us off because there's not much you need to say about Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2 remake that Vicarious did, aside from as soon as you open that menu and hear that classic Tony Hawk soundtrack hitting you right in your ears, man, I was back. And then just going
The
straight
only-
in. Oh, it was incredible.
The only words available are totally gnarly.
I'll
Good.
go next. Best first impression for me was Doom Eternal because that first level was awesome. That beginning cutscene just got you so hyped to play the game, even more than you had already felt leading up to the release of the game. And that first level just had some awesome views. It starts you, and I loved how it started you off with the shotgun right away. And just got rid of that crappy pistol from Doom 2016 entirely.
You had a pistol in 2016?
Exactly. Yeah. Great first level, great first little like introductory cutscene. Awesome. Perfect way to start a game. So
All
I
right.
will go next as plain game man, destroyer of worlds. There's like a 3-person team made basically an Ace Combat like love letter pretty much called Project Wingman, and up to its release I was like, oh, is this just going to be like some some like asset store Unity, like there's planes, but it doesn't feel good. And immediately the first mission is like the music is slapping, all the voices are exactly how they are in the like the AAA games, with how like they interact with the pilot that you play as. And it just felt great like immediately. So I was like immediately at home with the game made by like 3 people. So I was very, very impressed immediately.
All right. Hey,
Nice.
Tess, you got some Phasmophobia to talk about?
Yeah. I was just really impressed by the game because it was all made by one person.
That's a
Yeah.
good
I
point for a
thought
lot
Oh,
of
wow.
really
indies.
good.
Mhm.
I thought it was really good for a
Yeah,
game.
when one-person games get a good first impression, that's really, really solid.
Yeah, and also I just had like so much fun. I still have so much fun playing it.
All right. That means we're
Yeah.
down to most obnoxious character. And I think a lot of us have agreed on this one, and it's not the fault of the character. It's the fault of the game having proximity-based radio chatter, and that's Delamain from Cyberpunk. Wyatt, Tess, and I all mentioned Delamain here. Delamain is he just calls you again and again if you don't do his missions. It's very annoying.
It
I
makes
got
you really
annoyed.
hate your ringtone in that game. You're just like,
Yeah.
oh,
I
no.
had the
God
Delamain
that I have lost
contact
his
in
venial
my
vicinity.
phone 5 times.
Yeah, I had a moment where I had to go back and forth to try to find the entrance to an area, and Delamain just came on and off and on and off, and it was very annoying.
He's like,
I-
please,
I
one of my
did-
cars, please.
I did one of those, and I was like, this is just not that
I did
interesting.
all of
anymore.
them because
Sorry.
I wanted
And
the
like them.
money.
I thought the
Right, it's
variety in
not-
the mission. I thought the variety in the missions was nice.
Yeah, they're
No,
they're
the
really giving
variety-
you
I'm
all.
sure it's fine
variety
on
is
its own.
good.
I'm sure it's fine on its own, but compared to what I was doing when that mission first popped up for me, I was like, no, there's a lot more. There's a lot of other things I
I
want
just
to
got
devote my
annoyed
attention
because he
to.
would call mid-mission.
Yeah.
Like I'd be in the middle
Yeah,
of a
no,
mission
same,
and he'd be
same.
like, hey,
Yeah, some type
one
of
of my
priority.
cars.
Some type of
And I'd
priority.
be
Like a
chart
do
was
not
given.
call mode, like a don't disturb switch.
Yeah,
Like in
do
real
not
life.
disturb.
Just have the option to
Don't disturb me.
block Delamain. That'd be great.
Or
All right,
like the
Alex.
text that he would send you.
Alex, you got
Or
something
the
to
fact
talk
that
about?
some of them took so long to end.
I gotta
Yes,
cut
I
off the
do.
Delamain talk because we gotta move along. So
Oh, you're right,
Alex,
there's a lot.
Oh, my most obnoxious character pick is Shah Han from Destiny 2. The new expansion with oh my god, I forgot its name. Beyond Light. The Cosmodrome is brought back, and with it a new vendor who looks like a frat boy who will roofie your drink.
Oh,
That and a cross between Mr. Potato Head.
that's obnoxious.
Oh God.
And also, he's from Destiny and he gives out bounties, so what's
All
not
right.
obnoxious about that?
So already he's obnoxious and we don't like him and he's written really poorly. Anyway.
Tee us off, Brett.
Okay, so for 3/4 of the game, you're kicking butt, and you got another guy with you that you can command that is kicking more butt than you because his AI is really good. And then he leaves, and then a stupid idiot named PJ replaces him, and he sounds like a twerp. He sounds like Timmy Turner, damn it.
Oh
And
no.
then and he sucks. And he doesn't. His AI is even worse. And I know it's supposed to be like, oh well, you weren't you glad that you had that other guy flying that plane with you? Well, guess what? Now you have a worse guy instead. But it doesn't make it feel any less annoying.
Oh no.
Yeah. All right. So for our next award, we have best side character. Following up the most obnoxious, we got to go something good. And I'll kick us off again. Haruka Sawamura is a character that recurs in basically the entire Yakuza franchise, at least Yakuza 1 through 6. And I think it is the only character that has ever been portrayed in a way of like a father-daughter relationship happening over the course of like 20 years in a game, and it's insane. It's really, really cool, and she's basically your surrogate daughter in all the games, and the way you interact with her is always really, really refreshing. I think her character is just super unique, and there isn't really another character that like that in any game that you see kind of grow up like that. So Yeah, very, very cool character. Wyatt and Tess.
Yeah, we picked Jackie Wells because I don't. There's very few video game characters for me that were like immediately as likable as Jackie was,
Yeah.
and all of his like accompanying side missions. Not gonna say what they are. Not gonna give them away, but they were all either really really fun or absolutely made me cry.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I love Jackie.
yeah.
They did such a good job at making you so normally characters like you have to like takes you a little while to like them and get attached to them. I got like attached to Jackie like so quick.
Instantly.
Like they
Yeah.
just made his character so likable and so good in such a short amount of time that I enjoyed his character so much.
I was
All right.
I was immediately Googling things after that mission.
Brett.
Understandable.
Moving on. We got to keep the time moving. Brett, what do you got?
I don't know if anyone here has played Okami before.
Hell
Nope.
yeah.
It's
Mm.
good dog run around ancient Japan game. And your sidekick is a little bug-sized man named Isun, and he starts off really like smarmy and rude and kind of annoying, and he stays that way. But then his rudeness is like in support of you instead, and he's just such a cool little dude.
All right.
That's it.
Little smarmy bug man.
So we got another character award to talk about. Best character design. We got some different things here, different interpretations of what it is and is not a character. Tess, I want you to start us off with Animal Crossing. I think yours is the only one that's not a specific character, but instead like a whole just design
I
way.
just liked it because they added knees.
All right, great.
Is that it? That's it.
Oh,
It's
I
from
thought there'd be another
that
sentence
meme
there.
that said
That's it.
they
next,
they added knees so that Tom Nook
next
would
gen
hit you in the
knees.
knees when you don't pay.
Oh no.
So ever since that, I've just been really big on the knees.
Uh-huh.
That's it. The knees.
All right.
I
And
mean, I
who's
guess the characters look a lot better than they did from New Leaf, but the knees.
okay? Great.
Smooth and non-polygonal.
I gotta say, who says that robots aren't people? So Brett.
I have zero attachment to humans, and all of that attachment instead goes to mecha. So, if yours opens up into a glowing red super mode like Veltal Id from Xenogears does, then I'm all in. It's spiky
I
and,
want to
and
play
big,
this
and it
game
looks
so
sick.
bad.
It's so good.
Need to play Xenogears. All right, Wyatt.
Pathless back for another award. I don't know, the main character, the hunter. She just has this wonderful kind of like understated sort of suit, and I love how it kind of contrasts with the rest of the open world because it's kind of this bright red, whereas the rest of the open world is kind of like either forest or snow or something like that.
Until it's
And
boss fight time.
yeah, and then just she also has has a pet bird that also just goes well with the entire ensemble, and yeah, it's just very aesthetically pleasing to me.
All right. Yeah, and my pick for best character design is Namba from Yakuza Like a Dragon. Namba is his character design is not that crazy, but I think it's really really cool because he's a homeless character who is one of your party members, and that's super rare in any game. Like it's super rare in games to get homeless representation that isn't super awful. So seeing it from one of your party members, and especially him having this really cohesive move set of like summoning pigeons, his hairstyle of like it's one of the only Japanese games that has pulled off curly hair.
Ooh.
It's super rare in like Japanese media, so seeing that in Yakuza is really really cool. And I just think his entire like design is super unique of being this like homeless wizard essentially. Yeah, he's super cool. All right, moving on. We have our best compass direction. Now, I made this award as a joke, and I figured people would put like east and west, and then Brett comes in. And Brett, what did you do?
Well, you know, you gotta walk a lot and Ghost of Tsushima, and the compasses didn't exist yet, I guess. But what did exist was the wind, and the wind is really good and really cool. So much so that all the people that put a submission for this all said the wind, which I was not expecting.
Yeah. I mean, I
Way
think
to turn this joke into a serious topic, Brett.
Yeah.
Well-
the wind in Tsushima is a super innovative way of getting a compass out of your view and putting it in a different method that works really well.
Yeah.
That's just what this category was, because I looked at some of these earlier, but then I looked at this one after the compass parentheses was put in the title. So I was just like, oh, I guess that's what it means. So yeah, that makes sense.
I was just hoping to have like a joke award in the middle for people to be like, my favorite direction's north. Nope. Brett has
was
to.
not
smart. Brett was
I'm
too
not
smart for your
sorry.
Yep.
stupid joke.
He broke my system. All right, so the next award is going to be a choir. We're all going to say it together. It is worst production management of a company. On three, everybody.
We need a conductor.
One,
With-
2, 3. Cyberpunk
Cyberpunk
2077.
2077.
That was awful.
It was
Wow.
great. It was managed just as poorly as Cyberpunk.
Oh
Yes.
Great tie-in.
And we totally planned that.
Absolutely.
100%.
And I think it goes to show a lot of us really like Cyberpunk and had a lot of fun with it, but man, was it handled poorly, especially on consoles. So yeah, there's not a ton we need to say about this. We've talked about it every episode for the last few weeks.
Pretty much.
So go back and listen to that portion of any of the
What's
other
the
podcasts.
original Cyberpunk game?
It's a tabletop RPG.
Cyberpunk 2020.
It's like D&D.
Oh.
It's like
Okay, I
Cyberpunk
see it.
role-playing
Cyberpunk
game.
RPG.
Yeah.
Yes, there's been 2,700
1988.
2,077 Cyberpunk games, and this is just the list.
Yeah, this is just the latest.
That's not even what I was going for. You just
Eat
made
that,
me so
Final
interested.
Fantasy.
I wasn't
Alright.
even thinking about that.
So now best production management. I think there's tons of games that are super eligible for this. Tess and I both said Animal Crossing: New Horizons. I know on my end that's because of the fact that they delayed the game to avoid crunch specifically, and presumably actually did it. Whereas a lot of games will kind of use delays to extend crunch.
I
It's
was
a
upset
nice thing to
about the
see.
delay, but it was worth it.
It also meant that it came out at a really good time.
Yeah,
Mhm.
almost too good,
Same day as
Nintendo.
same day
We're
as
watching
Doom
you.
Eternal, baby.
Same day.
Yeah, Nintendo is psychic.
And now
All
we
right.
have so many memes.
Hey Brett,
Hello.
you picked one for this.
I did. Well, I don't think any of us have heard a single thing about the development of Ghost of Tsushima, and I'm gonna be honest. I think that's like
A good thing.
exactly the way that it should be. Like I don't want to hear any bad news. If it just goes so smoothly that there is nothing to talk about, then perfect.
Yeah, they're doing well. All right, Wyatt,
Yeah.
take us home.
So mine was Hades, and that's because it's the exact opposite of Brett in the sense that we heard a lot about its development, but a lot of good things, because Hades had an incredible early access kind of lifetime, and it came out already really, really good, and then it just got better and better with community feedback, and the whole early access program was actually used properly, and the end result was this incredibly well made, this incredibly polished game that benefited a lot from community feedback in the early access process. So
All right, I definitely agree with all of that. All right, so moving on in the studio theme, we have most concerning studio. Now, I think we can all agree we're a little bit worried about CD Projekt Red. So Alex, I'll let you go first.
So why I'm worried isn't because of the people actually making the game. The developers were doing fine. It would have been a lot better, if this game was given more time, like Brett said, when it's actually ready to be released. I'm worried about the oh my god, the management.
Executives.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The management, marketing, all those people who just seem like there's a ginormous disconnect between them and what's actually going on in their own studio.
it's almost
Yeah.
like that game had the worst production management of the year.
Almost.
like that. It's almost like that.
All right. So Brett, our other single vote for 343?
Yeah. I'm concerned.
Again,
Uh,
we've talked a lot about 343.
It's so
Yeah.
I'm not gonna dwell on it for a lot, but just like the thought keeps like creeping into my brain that Halo Infinite was supposed to come out, in what, like fall
Yeah.
of now last year. Like, oh my god,
Oh,
I can't even imagine that world. That would be like
oh,
that would probably be akin to a cyberpunk disaster if it happened.
Yeah. I don't know, especially considering that the new date we're hearing is fall of this year,
Yeah.
like a
I mean,
full
I
year
still think it will
delay.
be, but
Oof, that's rough.
um,
All right. So Wyatt, you and I had the same answer. I think for some good reasons. BioWare is
Yeah.
it's not the most openly concerning because it's not like they've put out something super terrible. Oh wait, they did. It was called Anthem.
Yeah, and depending on who you ask, Mass Effect Andromeda wasn't great either. Although I didn't hate it. Most
I mean, Mass Effect Andromeda to me is almost a different. It's a different part of the studio. It's not the part I'm concerned about. I'm concerned about like main BioWare management with Casey Hudson and whatnot leaving.
Well,
Again.
the scary thing too is that they're working on. I mean, from what we've heard, it's 3 different projects, right? So we have this new Dragon Age thing.
Yeah.
We have this new Mass Effect thing. We have whatever Anthem 2.0 is going to look like. And I almost forgot. We have I don't know if they're working on development for that at all, but there's the Mass Effect trilogy.
I would bet they're doing very
collection.
little on Mass Effect trilogy.
Still,
so
though,
that's
it's a
probably not.
lot. It's a lot for a studio that's had a really, really
Yeah.
rough couple of years. When what they need to be doing,
Especially because they haven't released anything in a super long time.
they need to be doing what Dice is doing, which is all hands on deck for the next Battlefield. We're not stretching ourselves too thin. But that's exactly what they're doing here. They're stretching themselves way too thin when they're on shaky ground as it is.
And just the fact that we've seen nothing from Dragon Age 4 and it's been in development for however many years at this point is a little concerning. That we haven't seen any like even pre-alpha gameplay. Very concerning. Okay, so now least concerning studio. Again, there's some good answers for this. Wyatt, why don't you start us off on this one?
Yeah, Supergiant Games. They made Hades, Bastion, Transistor, Pyre. All their games have been absolute bangers, and they're super. When it comes to monetization, there is none. They're not really greedy in that respect. They're super open with the community, like they were with Hades, and they just make great content every single time. So yeah, least concerning.
Yeah. All right. For me, Capcom, I think, has been knocking out of the park lately. They're into a lot of different things. I think the only concerning thing they're doing is a little bit of Street Fighter is weird, but Monster Hunter Rise is shaping up to be incredible. A lot of their other projects are shaping up really good. And according to those leaked documents from a little while back, if those leaks are actually true, they've got some really, really awesome stuff in the cooker. And I can't wait for Dragon's Dogma 2 if it happens. So yeah, I think they're on a really solid foundation right now, and they're one of the only AAA studios that's like really big that I'm not actively concerned about. Speaking of another AAA studio that's not actively concerning, Brett.
Hey.
Copy and paste what I said before about Sucker Punch and put it here.
Wow.
Hey Brett, what game did Sucker Punch make for people that don't know?
It goes to Tsushima.
There you go.
It's completely smooth and no controversies at all. Just the way I like it.
All right, great.
Smooth.
Now we've got a really, really solid award that's close to my heart and close to everyone else's heart. Game you most want to forget. And of course, it's so close to my heart that I really don't have anything to put here. I didn't play anything this year that I really want to forget. But some other people did. So, who's ready to start us? Who's good?
I'll start us off. Call of Duty Warzone, just because I'm not a huge fan of Battle Royale, and this one specifically was incredibly frustrating. And I felt like it also affected the core multiplayer's development, and I feel like it got a lot less attention because Warzone was doing so well. And because I love Modern Warfare's core multiplayer so much, that really pissed me off. So
Agreed.
Yeah. Hey Tess, you got some issues with Battle Royales?
Gosh, so many issues with battle royales. It's so boring. I don't understand how someone can just sit there and be like, I want to be the first one. I want to be the last person to die. So annoying. God, I tried Warzone and I was like, this is awful. I tried Apex. I was like, this is awful.
I love that
So
you
it's
just have an
not-
entire genre you want to forget.
Just wait
wanna
until
forget
just
that
wait
battle
until
royale game
Hogwarts. Just wait until Hogwarts Legends becomes a battle royale.
Oh no.
Don't say that.
I would personally email J.K. Rowling and be like, listen, you've already done so much bad things. Don't add this onto it. Please.
God.
Please.
All right. Hey Brett, could
I
you say
don't
you've been left on red?
Absolutely, and I
God.
hate it. I don't know. Okay, I don't know if any other person on Earth has heard of Left on Red.
Haven't heard of it.
It is like it's a text adventure of like a relationship taking place over distance during like COVID times.
Really
And
interesting.
it's like it is the
That's how.
it is the most
Sorry.
tasteless and poorly written garbage I have
Pretty
ever
sure
had to sit
recent
through.
reviews very positive.
Oh,
I
God,
God.
literally, you have to be insane to have enjoyed that game. Like
Oh, I thought
that
this was
there's,
sounds
gonna be like
awful.
I thought this was gonna be a horror.
you would think so. Left on Red sounds like a B movie horror movie kind of title, but no, it's just like I don't even think you actually like get left on red because
Um,
it's all text conversation. You move
Oh,
from text message choices with a block like it's like the
um,
Impossible game or something, and it sounds like it's written by like an 80-year-old man or something.
I'm
People
looking
don't
at
text like this. It's
looking at
horrible.
the pictures of like the previews. I
It's
miss
an
the sound of
interesting
your voice
concept,
right
though.
now.
That's kind of
That's really
disappointing.
beautiful. I'm gonna go to bed now. Good night. Oh yeah, forgot the time is so embarrassing. Good night.
It's so cringy. It was like an hour and
oh,
a half of complete cringe.
Oh
It was
no!
awful.
Oh
Hour and
no!
I it's free to play.
It's not
hang on.
worth it. You should pay me to play that game. It's so bad.
Oh my god, there's a DLC.
So
That's $5.
is this official game art that I'm seeing with these two
All right.
characters?
I gotta cut the left on red conversation off so we can move. But
Wow.
Later.
I am glad we talked about that. All right.
We'll revisit
So-
this.
Next, we have our best ensemble cast award. There's some good contenders here. I want Wyatt to go first because his is the one that least fits with ensemble cast.
Oh.
I
Okay.
was wondering about that.
And
It's-
for those who don't know what an ensemble cast is, it's a cast of essentially you have a group of main characters and you don't particularly have a specific single main character. So think like sitcoms, right? That's an ensemble cast. So the sitcom of video games, Wyatt,
Like
is
Friends.
Oh, I see.
Oh, would
Okay.
Borderlands
So-
fit? Sorry.
So I kind of missed the. I put Cyberpunk. I
well, I would say
completely-
Cyberpunk is still okay, and if you're considering like the characters you do things with.
Well, it's just
Yeah.
because it was a toss up between Hades and Cyberpunk for me, but like both of those games, and I guess
I would
think
say
a little
Hades is
more-
more of an ensemble cast than Cyberpunk
I think
is.
I think Cyberpunk more for me just because like every time I got a text or a call from someone or I had a message or I had a mission related to a specific side character, I would just get so excited to like see what happened next, and I really like I would go out of my way, like I don't care what I'm doing, I'm gonna go do that instead. And I haven't felt that
Yeah.
way since like Mass Effect.
In
Just
Mass
a
Effect
bunch of
certainly
side-
is an ensemble cast. Like
just like a bunch of side characters that I care so much about and I want to see what happens to them. So that's why it's there.
all right. So I'm gonna go through mine real quick. I put two here because in reality, my best ensemble cast is Yakuza 5 by far. But I can't discount Final Fantasy VII Remake because Final Fantasy VII's cast has been just super important to games in general. Like they started all the tropes that are in JRPGs
Yeah.
for the most part, so I had to put it here for some representation. But in reality, I think my definitely my real favorite Yakuza 5. You play 5 different protagonists over the course of it, and all of them have their own battle systems. They're all incredible characters, super well written. Yeah, it's just incredible playing as all those different characters, and then at the end of the game, all their stories converge into this one giant like final battle. It's super fun. All right, Brett.
I didn't. I didn't play a lot of games that like came out this year that had more than like one character, so I had to go back in time to Xenogears again. And because old school JRPG, PS1, a lot of choices for your 3-man party, and this is like it's the game that was for a while. It was supposed to be Final Fantasy VII before Final Fantasy VII came out.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't have like the tropes, but the things that are there instead of the tropes are really like super cool and really really weird. Like you just wouldn't see them in other games, and all of their characters are like pretty sick. Like the usual white mage is a cowboy's priest son with dual revolvers and stuff. Like it's pretty awesome. Like not only with like designs and how they fight, but with how they're written as well.
All right. Hey Tess, you brought an ensemble cast.
Yes, Until Dawn again.
Great.
Yeah.
I mean, enough said.
Yeah.
Enough said.
Yeah.
All the characters were all like unique in their own ways. All had their own personalities. I felt like they weren't all like the same. They just all were like unique in their own way. Talked different, looked at scenarios differently, and yeah.
Yeah, they all a lot of them represent sort of individual aspects of horror that are really unique.
Yes,
What
and
I
my
liked about
favorite
it.
part of the game.
It's been a
Emily
very long
slaps
time since I
Ashley.
played it, but a lot of those characters have stuck with me.
You know what Emily slaps
Yep.
Ashley. She's like, recognize the palm of my hand. Oh, so good every time.
All right. So before we get to our game of the year and honorable mentions, we got a few more awards we can talk about because we're making decent time, which means best protagonist. Hey Wyatt, we both put Zagreus here.
Hey.
You want to tell them why?
Hey, Ryan. Where do I begin? Well, first of all, I love his voice actor. I don't know what it is, but there's just something specifically about his voice that I love so much. But just that there's so many there's so many things to unpack about his character that you learn during the game at a really really good pace, which is kind of a common thing with Hades, where like all the narrative stuff I think comes out at a really really good pace, and he's just a character where like it perfectly kind of emulates the struggle that he's kind of going through to get to his final goal, and it's making you go through that at the same time. So it makes him a very like instantly relatable character because you instantly feel the kind of you feel his struggle, like I said before, and not a whole lot of games do that really really well. So he's just a very easily like likable guy, I guess.
Yeah. I know for me, the big thing that stands out is just he's a roguelike protagonist with a lot of voiced lines and character. Because a lot of roguelikes do the roguelike thing just by killing off your character and then having a new one the next run, which can be really fun, but it means your narrative has to be structured around that. So having like an actual protagonist is really refreshing.
And it's great, and it's great that he'll like kill a boss during a boss battle, and then when he dies, he'll like meet the boss at a bar and be like, "Hey, what's up?"
All right, Brett.
That's great.
Brett, you got some Project Wingman for us.
I do. We are back in Plain Country. The guy you play as in Project Wingman is the leader of the Hitman Squad, Monarch.
Of course.
And he never talks or says anything, but just the way that other people talk about him after some of the things that you do as him make you feel like you are a god while playing him in your funny plane flipping around and disobeying the laws of physics. It's amazing hearing like both like enemies and friendlies alike like comment on how absolutely terrified they are of you because of the amount of explosions you can cause at one time.
Wonderful. We all know that is the best way to measure your protagonist is how many explosions they can cause at one time.
Of course.
Hey Tess, there's a character in Last of Us that causes some explosions named what's her name? And reminder, we're not doing spoilers, so be careful.
Ellie?
Some of those explosions.
Ellie?
Ellie.
Yeah, that's what I chose. Yeah, I just have a really big attachment to Ellie, just from The Last of Us, and I mean, she kind of pissed me off in The Last of Us 2, not gonna lie, but
Still a very good character.
still, yeah, amazingly written character.
Yeah,
Still,
and yeah,
still adore
It's
her.
super hard to talk about her without spoiling things. We're being very
Yeah,
careful.
she really.
but I think a lot of it does go to Ashley Johnson as well, who
Oh, yeah.
voices.
Oh yeah, she
absolutely
makes the
just
actress.
perfect.
I mean, she
yeah.
makes the
the character.
character just so good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've always liked Ellie as just. I mean, obviously nobody in that game is perfect. Everyone in there is just kind of a bad person in their own way.
And that's the point.
Yeah.
All right.
But-
And of course, if there are best protagonists, there are best antagonists. So, why don't we start with Wyatt, because you chose Ellie's counterpart.
I picked Abby, which may be a slightly controversial choice, but
But
Why? Oh.
Well, I'm not going
I
to
keep
say
forgetting.
specifically, but Abby does some pretty crappy things in The Last of Us 2.
she
But
sure does.
she's a really good example of my favorite kind of villain or antagonist character, is one that's very relatable, or one that you can understand in a lot of ways, or one that you kind of like regret that the hero has to fight in some way, because it's like, oh, I
Yeah.
understand who this person is. I feel for them in a lot of ways, and I think Abby is like one of the greatest antagonists for that in any game that I've played. Just because of a lot of the decisions that the game itself makes, and so she's just one of my favorites, just because she's so like relatable.
All right.
In a way.
And while you chose a character, I think Brett and I are on the same page here in that the best antagonists are organizations. For me,
countries.
whole countries sometimes. So for me, I chose Shinra from FF7 Remake because I think the remake does a really, really good job of demonstrating why they are a good antagonist as a group. Like some of the members can be cartoonishly evil, but as an organization, they're just super threatening the entire time, especially when they have these convincing demonstrations that are like, we're the best. We're here for the minds of the people, right? We're the people's chosen to lead this city. And then you see what they do, and you're like, these people are messed up. I think especially the setup for the next FF7 remake sequel is really, really solid, and I can't wait to see what they do with Shinra in the next game. Take it away, Brett.
And like I said before, why stop at a single organization when you can just have an entire country of people be perfect antagonists? It's it
Mm.
helps to, if you're enjoying the Ace Combat series, if you're like I don't know, like 25% history buff, because it's like, oh well, now I get to see what an imaginary version of this country would do if they were in this time period. And Belka is like, if you took the very, very angry post World War I Germany and made them have nukes, because
Oh.
the war that they lost by being sore losers and nuking themselves 7 times so that they couldn't give up any of their country to anyone else
That's
after their loss. And
incredible.
this is in the first cutscene of the game. So
Talk
this is not
about a
spoilers, by the
temper
way.
I
tantrum.
remember
my
that cutscene from
goodness.
Ace Combat 5.
It is
so good.
horrifying, because you fly through that area and it is dead and there is nothing, and it is terrifying, and they like continue to pull strings through that entire story after their country basically no longer exists anymore. And it's just it's so like they're so easy to get mad at, and it feels so good to foil all their plans.
If we had an
with more
award
stories.
for biggest video game temper tantrum, I think that would win.
7 nukes.
Yeah. All right, Tess, your pick for best antagonist.
I chose the Huntress from Dead by Daylight. And I know that probably sounds really weird, but I love her character design. And she also has a song that she sings that you can hear in the distance, and it's so haunting, but it's so pretty. Apparently, it's like a 300-year-old Russian lullaby
Ooh.
That's
that she
horrifying.
sings. Yeah, but it's like so calming at the same time. But she's also just hot.
Hey, You know, sometimes you don't need a better reason than that. But of
Even though
course,
you can't see her face, but if you just like look up her like costume, like her design, you'll just be like, yeah, I get it. I get what Tess is saying.
if
Oh.
there are best antagonists, there are worst antagonists. So we got some real trash cans right now. I'm gonna kick us off with I've been talking about Yakuza a few times in these lists, and I really think Yakuza 5 is a knockout game. It's an incredible game, and if it had come out this year, it would probably be my game of the year. But the one of the bosses in that game, his name is Aizawa, and he shows up at the start of the game as like a nice little character, and then he pops up really late into the game out of nowhere, just out of nowhere, and then he's like a super major boss at the end, but for no reason, like it just comes out of nowhere, and his fight's really cool, but he's got no motivation. He just shows up. It's ludicrous.
He's like, hey, I'm evil, by the way.
It's one of the best fights in the game, but it just doesn't make any sense. There's literally no reason for him to be an antagonist in that game at all. And then he just shows up and is like, hey, fight me.
Maybe he just wanted to fight.
He did just want to fight. That was his motivation.
He's like, I just want to.
But it's bizarre because it comes after like the final boss fight.
That's weird.
Oh,
It's just
really?
like
That's
a weird. It's a weird thing that happens. So, yeah, that character in Yakuza 5 is ridiculous. I love him, but man, he's such a bad antagonist. All right. Hey, Brett.
Hello again. I'm here to talk about how I don't like Koten Khan very much. In a game that, you know, the side content has some very interesting things to fight and little mini antagonists. And I think calling him like, you know, bad is a little bit of an overstatement. He's just like the least interesting thing to be up against, like not only in
Yeah.
the boss battles, but like just like I don't know. It's I understand, you know, man who conquer other nation bad. Like that's I guess that's enough of a bad guy character to have. But it would have been nice if there was some more, especially because the rest of the game's characters and interactions have a lot of nice detail and feeling put into them.
Yeah. All right. Wyatt, take us away.
I'm gonna go with the least memorable award as well here. I'm kind of doubling up here. Simon Krieger from Spider-Man Miles Morales. Not only did they waste Troy Baker on this performance, but they also just made a villain that is the double whammy of crap. You have a villain that is supposed to be a twist villain that you can see coming from 100 million miles away. As soon as he like shows up for the first time, you just know, like, it's not even, there isn't even a second guess or a red herring or anything like that. And he's also just incredibly boring. He has no interesting motivations whatsoever. He doesn't have an interesting like boss fight or anything. He's just so boring. And the only memorable thing about him is that his last name is Krieger, which is my favorite character from the show Archer, and like that's the only memorable thing about him.
Wonderful. All right.
Yeah.
So, you know what is memorable? That's hair.
Yes.
And we've got some characters here that competing for the coolest hair. Hey, Tess. You got a character competing for coolest hair.
Explain this one.
I did the little space buns on my V.
Space bun.
Yeah. With the it was like a black and red ombre. Oh, she looked good.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, I made her whole appearance based off red and black, and she just looks good.
All right.
Nobody compared.
Wyatt, you've also got a cyberpunk character.
I do. I have Judy Alvarez because, first of all, it just looks really cool. It's like green and purple, and
I
it's
can
kind of
agree with
like
that.
shaved on the side. And also, it's great because if you don't know what Judy looks like and you just close her eyes and you hear her talk, it's exactly what you would imagine her hair to be like. Which means, in my opinion,
Yeah.
at least, that fits her character really well. Like they match the hair and the voice and the personality really well together. So,
All right.
She was my girlfriend.
Brett?
You know, for I don't want to spoil anything, but I'll leave some ominous foreshadowing of people that can fight with their hair. a character from Xenogears named Emeralda is entirely made of nanomachines, and I guess the devs, when they what they did with that is they just made her fight with her hair, which is pretty cool because I don't know of a lot of JRPG uh characters that all their moveset is based off of what weird shapes they can make with their nanomachine hair, like hammers and stuff. It's really crazy.
Well,
I'm
hey
getting
Brett,
Metal
speaking
Gear
of
Rising
characters
flashbacks.
that can use moves out of their hair, my pick's Bayonetta because I played Smash this year.
It
And
counts.
Bayonetta's in Smash. And if I played a game with Bayonetta in it, I can't in good consciousness give the coolest hair award to anyone but Bayonetta. So even if I didn't play Bayonetta, I still played Bayonetta in Smash. So Bayonetta still got the coolest hair, aside from one character that I think we can all agree definitely wins this award. Alex, take us away. Wow us with your pick.
Okay. Character with the coolest hair by far out of all of your loser picks. Kratos from God of War.
Wow.
Hey, sometimes the lack of hair just as strong as the hair itself. And that beard's powerful.
Sometimes
It is.
Sometimes
It is.
Sometimes silence speaks volume.
That is well groomed for a god killer.
Yeah, impeccable, especially after
He do
all the
be looking
blood.
Walker.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, so I'm going to save a couple of these for later. So we're going to skip down to best soundtrack and talk about some audio stuff for a little while. So my pick best soundtrack, this is kind of similar to my Ensemble Cast Award. It's FF7 Remake because, man, those tunes still hit hard in the remake, and the remake remixes are incredible. I don't think FF7 Remake has a bad song in the soundtrack. They're all really, really good. So that soundtrack's just super solid the entire way through. All right, Alex. Oh, Brett, you said the same thing.
I did.
I missed that. Anything to add?
Nobuo Uematsu is God, and if you take your music and base it off of something that is that good and just use more modern things on top of it, then I guess you literally just make the best thing ever. Like I think that might be my favorite game soundtrack ever, and I haven't even
Wow.
Hey,
technically
I
played
mean,
the game yet.
you play like the first three notes of either One Winged Angel or I think it's like Hopes and Sorrows. Instantly emotional. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Alex, you were our solo pick of Miles Morales.
Yeah, it's I didn't pick I didn't figure hip hop for very web swinging music, but my god, it fits really well. Especially with the also the theme of the villains and you know just it it really accentuates a lot about the game
Yeah.
itself, which is, one of the great things that soundtrack can do.
All right. We got another pairing here. Wyatt and Tess. Take it away.
Yes. Doom
All I have to
Eternal.
say, yeah, it's a McGordon score. That's all I have to say. It's really really awesome, and it fits the game really well. And it it makes me want to smash some heads in real life. So
Gets you pumped. It
it
really
gets
does.
you, yeah. It especially again that opening cutscene with the opening classic Doom track. Oh my lord! I was ready. You are ready to play the game. You hear one song and you're ready. So
All right. That's our best soundtrack contenders. Anything left to add to that, Tess?
Just gets you pumped.
All right.
That's all I gotta say.
That's probably the best one sentence description of Doom music. So,
Exactly.
as is the running theme here, every best has a worst, and there were some stinkers. Some stinker soundtracks. Okay, so I couldn't actually think, and when I say there were some stinker soundtracks, I don't actually think there were. There's not really that many bad soundtracks of this year.
This was a hard
But one thing
category.
that was really bad, Yakuza 7 is the first mainline Yakuza to have an English dub. In the English dub, instead of just using the Japanese karaoke, they got the English voice actors to do shortened versions of the songs, and my god, none of them can sing. It's really,
Oh, no.
really bad.
No.
It also is just like, it's very clear they did like a direct translation of lyrics and not a like rhythmic one, if that makes sense.
Oh,
So none of the songs sound good in English. They just sound like messes. And
It's
then
the
if you
worst
swap to
possible
the
outcome.
Japanese audio and do those same songs, they sound incredible. They're mixed super well. It's great. But those English karaoke songs in Japanese Yakuza 7 are really, really bad. All right. Wyatt, why don't you get us started with some Splatoon?
No, I'm never going to diss the Splatoon soundtrack. What I will diss is second-rate clones,
Yep.
which is exactly what Rogue Company is for one track. Most of it is pretty dull, pretty like standard, boring, like completely just like who cares soundtrack, except for the theme that plays at the main menu, which starts off with really weird jazz saxophone and then has curiously some oddly placed Splatoon-esque sound effects all in the same song, and it's a mess, and I don't know what it's doing there, and it's really weird, and I don't like it.
All right.
So
Hey, Brett, you gonna make some people angry?
Fall Guys
That's what
soundtrack
it-
is annoying.
that's what he does. That's what he does.
Yeah, I can get
best.
behind that.
I understand
I
it.
didn't make anyone angry.
I think
I
Fall
did
Guys has
too.
one banger song, which is that lobby music, but the rest of it, eh.
I just don't even really like Fall Guys.
No,
Yeah,
I hate
no.
Fall Guys for the record, but that lobby song is really good.
I'll just sit over here in my corner of thinking Fall
Oh.
Guys was really, really fun.
Yeah, please do. We don't
Wyatt.
want. Please do,
Yeah.
Ryan. We don't want
Wyatt
you.
in his hate corner. All right. So our final honorable mentions award is Best Arms. And I think there's also a clear winner of this category.
Which
So
was made
Brett,
up
you and
by
I are going to
me.
go first so we can get the clear losers out of the way. Mine, as much as I love Barrett from FF7 Remake, his arms are great. That machine gun arm, really, really powerful, very, very strong. Lots of bullets coming out of it. But it really can't compete with our final competitor, Brett.
I think I probably played Smash like once over the course of last year. And I listen. Say what you will about the game arms, but Min Min's got some arms on her, and
Some noodle
I-
arms, you could say.
some noodle arms. Even though clearly she does not have the best arms, clearly the longest. So that's something.
So why don't our 3 votes for the best arms go ahead and reveal the best arms?
Abby.
Abby.
Abby. The first time I saw those arms, I was like, oof.
She can,
Yep.
she can break your neck with doing nothing but just flexing, and she can
I
just
know.
snap your neck.
When I first did a melee attack with her and I broke the person's neck, not a melee attack, but the
Oh.
attack, and I broke the neck, I was like, oh, no way.
Yep.
I did not just break that
So
Robbie's
that's
neck. Oh my god.
so
It was,
that's your first impression. Mine was, God, I need a hug.
Oh yeah, I would love a big hug from Abby. Just a minute.
The last
All
one
right,
you'd ever
before
get.
this goes too
Yeah.
off track, we're going to go to our honorable mentions. So the way this final Game of the Year award is going to work is that each of us is going to have a few minutes to do, and by a few minutes I do mean like 2 minutes, to pitch the game and essentially tell everyone what the game is if they haven't played it. And then we will ask questions about said game for a few minutes, and then we'll move on to the next game. And then between now and the next podcast, we will decide a definitive Double M Radio Gamescast Game of the Year. But we've all got some honorable mentions. So we're going to briefly cover those. I'll get mine out of the way first because they're pretty simple. Yakuza Remastered Collection came out this year. Really, really, really good. Got to give an honorable mention to Sephiroth. Just in general, because, FF7 Remake's great. But he's in Smash now and got a really cool boss fight mode in Smash. So
For a limited time.
Sephiroth in general, gotta give that honorable mention. And Hades. Hades is probably my close second, very close second to what I chose for Game of the Year.
How dare you, Ryan? We were on the same page.
Well,
for
part
so
of that
long.
was that we wanted to have it so no one was bringing the same game to this, Wyatt. But the game I chose did win out in the end for me. But yeah, those are my picks for that. Wyatt, what were your honorable mentions?
Yeah, Doom Eternal. Just because I think as a sequel, it improves upon the first game in every single way. Last of Us 2 is not the same kind of sequel, but what I think it does really, really well. Deep Rock Galactic, awesome kind of 4-player cooperative shooter mining type of deal. And
Also a great
then
game.
Also fantastic. And then Ghost of Tsushima, which I really wish I liked more than I did, but it's still really, really good. And yeah.
All right,
That's-
Brett, got your
I pretty
honorable
much just-
mentions.
I shoved the things that did not come out this year pretty much into this box that I would have put for best. But yeah, Final Fantasy V played for the first time. That's a really fun game. Okami made me cry at the end. Xenogears made me feel really good about myself. Outer Wilds made me smile a lot and was just a really great game through and through. I finally got around to playing Metal Gear Solid, and that's a classic for a reason. Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess was probably my favorite Zelda now. That is a really awesome game. And Project Wingman would have been my game of the year, but no one else was going to put the thing that I wanted for game of the year. If someone else did, I would have put Project Wingman instead to make people mad, but I didn't. So it's it's in the honorable mentions now.
Okay. And Tess, you have some honorable mentions here.
Yeah, I mean, some of them are repeats. The Last of Us 2, just because The Last of Us 2.
That came out in 2020?
Yeah.
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 Wow.
It came out
Oh.
in the summer. So.
Way to interrupt me.
It was so long. I'm sorry.
Ooh.
Anyways, I also said Doom Eternal because the game was just fun. I played I played Doom 2016 on my Switch Lite, which was kind of hard, but
Oh.
I had to have my roommate help me with the boss fights because I just couldn't do it. And also Phasmophobia because of just I just like the games. I just like the game. And
All right,
I'm
great.
gonna throw in Among Us just because I honestly didn't think I was gonna hop on the Among Us bandwagon, but my roommate convinced me, asked me so many times to play it, and I just gave it, and I was like, all right, this game is actually really fun. And yeah.
All right. So now that we've all gone through our honorable mentions, unless Alex, you have any last honorable mentions you want to add?
No, I don't know. I did not have a big enough portfolio of games, or either this year or really in general, to feel like I could fill it out accurately.
All right.
Unfortunately.
That's totally fine. So moving to our contenders for our Double M Radio Gamescast Game of the Year. Wyatt, I'm gonna have you start so I can show how the questions are gonna work when we get to them, because I can't do that on myself. So you get to go first. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna set a 2-minute timer, and once that 2-minute timer ends, I will cut you off and give you like 10 seconds to wrap up. All right?
Okay.
That is how this will work, and then we will quiz you for the next 5 or so minutes on the game, and really get deep in there to see if it's worthy of being Game of the Year. All right?
Oh,
Horrifying.
okay.
Ready?
Okay.
Your time starts now, Wyatt.
Yes, best game of the year, simply because it does everything it does. It does really, really well. There isn't really a single.
Wyatt, what's the game?
Yeah, it's called Hades.
Good job.
I'm just so excited to talk about it. Shut up. Yeah, everything it does really, really, really well. Beautiful art style, wonderful music. It almost made my best soundtrack of the year. Really, really fun combat, excellent writing, excellent voice acting. It has a really unique storytelling structure simply due to the fact that it's a roguelike, and it kind of has to create a narrative based around a roguelike kind of structure. And it does that really, really well. All the character interactions are great. There's a ton of variety in combat. There's a ton of different builds you can make, tons of different weapons. So there's a ton of different ways to fight and all that good stuff. Yeah. But bam, I did it.
Wow, that's all you're gonna say about Hades.
I was trying to shut up.
Aw.
That was a double entendre. Shut up. Wow.
Aw.
All right. Well, you only used 1 minute, so we're gonna roll the other minute into your question time. All right. So I want these questions to be a little bit pointed. All right. You should be trying to find faults in the arguments. All right. So Wyatt, I gotta ask you: doesn't it get boring fighting the same bosses over and over again?
No, because sometimes with bosses you get different kind of conversations with them, which can kind of spice up the combat a little bit. Most of the time, you're encouraged to try different weapons, so or different like aspects of that weapon. So if you're going fighting with the spear, it might be fighting with the spear again another time, but it's a completely different. You're using it in a completely different way because it's a different aspect to the spear. Also, you're going in with usually very different builds because it's usually very difficult to try and get the same build over and over and over again. So you're going to have different ultimate abilities. You're going to have different casts. You're going to have different combos that you're going to want to use and stuff like that. So it never really gets boring.
All right. Who else has a question?
I have a question.
What's up?
I heard that there may or may not have been a canine, a dog in this game. Can you pet the dog?
Yes, you can pet the dog many, 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 many times.
Okay, that's my question.
All right, Wyatt. Are the characters good?
Characters are wonderful. They're wonderfully written and voice acted. And every time you go and talk to them, they have something new to say, whether it's about other characters or themselves, and you learn a lot about them as you go along. It becomes a driving part of the game is to learn just that little bit of extra information. It also leads to certain kind of like almost sort of mini side quests between certain characters if you're trying to reconnect people or you're just trying to learn more about two characters relationships and stuff like that. It's also you can learn more about them by giving them gifts and it just unlocks more dialogue. So I would say all the characters are fantastic. So
All right. Anyone else have something?
On the topic of the doing things over and over again, since it is a roguelike, how what about because songs are fun and nice to listen to in games, but when you're listening to the same ones over and over again, wouldn't that get a little boring maybe if you're going through the same areas and hearing the same music all the time?
it didn't for me because first of all, the music is just really, really good, and second of all, speaking personally, the way I play the game is I do like 2 or 3 runs and then I take a break and then I kind of come back. So it never plays repeatedly enough for me to get annoyed by it. Um, yeah. So it didn't for me, but that may just depend on the person.
Did you ever have issues getting bored with the game after playing it for however many runs?
Nope. Just because there was always something new to do, whether that was learning more about a character or unlocking a different aspect of a weapon or unlocking a new skill or just new mechanics in general. Like they're always introducing new things for you to do in between fighting people. That just continually makes it more and more interesting and just kind of fleshes out the gameplay more.
All right. Anyone else
Does
got something?
I think I have one. Uh,
So,
does finishing? So you said this is a roguelike that unexpectedly has some pretty good story elements to it.
mhm.
Does finishing the game, or at least getting as far as you can to the quote unquote final level too fast ruin the story, or impede some of its
There's
aspects?
there's finishing the game, quote unquotes, and then there's actually finishing the game, which are two very different things. One of them kind of happens earlier on in your playthrough, and then one happens much, much, much later. All I'll say is that it very much encourages you to get to the end multiple times. If that kind of answers your question.
All right. Any final questions? Great. I think the last one then. Did you ever feel like the luck of the run was getting to you? Have a bad run that just didn't feel like you could win?
Um, yes and no, because there's definitely an element of luck to it in terms of like what abilities and upgrades you're getting, but it never felt like it was luck's fault that I lost. It always there was never a moment where I was like, "Oh no, that was my mistake. I did this incorrectly." Where like I was playing the build this way when I should have played it more this way. Like it never wasn't my fault, which is always a good feeling to have when you lose a fight.
All right. Well, that is concluded your questioning, Wyatt. Good job we will discuss over the week-long gap about Hades. But yeah, so just to confirm before we keep going, Tess and Alex, do you guys have contenders for Game of the Year? Because you
Not
didn't write the
yet.
things down. All right, we will
I
give you time to
also-
think
yeah.
then, and just write something in the box on the sheet if you do, and then I'll go now, and then we'll go with Brett next, so you guys have some time. All right, so my game is 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim. I think the only one here who really has an understanding of what this game is, aside from myself, is Brett.
Yes.
13 Sentinels Aegis Rim is a very narrative-heavy pseudo platformer. There's not really any action or anything in it, but it is platformer styled. It's almost like point and click adventure, to be honest. And fully voice acted game made by a small studio called Vanillaware. It's about basically a robot invasion of Earth and dealing with that invasion as a bunch of characters that are kind of the pilots of these giant robots that you use to fight off the invasion. But of course, that's not where it ends. There's tons more going on. Every character, there are 13 different protagonists in this game. All of them can be played as, all of them have at least 2.5 hours of story content that is fully voice acted from their perspective. Those stories will link up with other characters. And that's not even mentioning the battle system yet, which is the super intricate real-time with pause mech-based tactical fighter where you have like this battle map and you have to control your mechs to blast hordes and hordes of giant robots to bits as they are rushing to attack the city. So you can activate something called the Aegis Protocol. It's very, very unique. The narrative presentation is super interesting because you can play those protagonists in pretty much any order, aside from like one that will always be the final one you play. But you can play them in pretty much any order, and you'll do that 30-stage final battle is taking place in the future. It's the final battle that you're fighting through, and so you're kind of bouncing back and forth between this final battle that's super long and grueling and the narrative elements. So there's tons going on. It's a lot of fun. All right. Question time. Who's got something?
So I'll start with what I believe to be, again, the most important question. If there is a dog, can you pet it?
There are cats. I think there might have been a dog at 1.2. There are cats that you can pet.
Okay, that counts. If no one else has anything else, I will actually ask a question now.
No, I have a question. Just because
Do
I'm
it.
one of those people that really doesn't know. I mean, you explained it, but I don't know a whole lot about it. Is there an English? Is it voice acted? First of all,
Yeah, fully
Fully
voice acted in English.
okay. How is the English dub? Would
Incredible.
You say that it's worth
It
playing
is
in?
extremely good.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I wouldn't even consider playing it in like Japanese because there's so much. Essentially, like every second of playing this game, there is dialogue going on, and the game is like 40 hours long. It's not a short game.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
Yeah, it's all voice acted. Very, very good.
Did having that many main characters, did it ever feel like unwieldy, or like was there ever a character that could have had a bit more attention dedicated to them, but they couldn't just because they were so
Yes, but that's
characters?
intentional. That feeling of
Oh.
like trying to grasp at what's going on is very much the pull of the game. It's like a mystery of you having to unravel what's happening. And the thing that's great is that like playing one character, you might reveal that turns out something you're fighting is actually not human. It's a weird thing. But if you play that character last, you're not going to know that until the end. But if you play it first, like I did, that colors your entire run with another character of you like knowing this information that they don't know. And then once all those storylines combine, you have this intricate web of connecting points, and the game makes it very easy to like follow. It separates every character's own events into very easily readable timelines, so you know what's going on with each character, which is definitely helps to manage that confusion.
So the mystery solving aspect seems to be pretty satisfying, but a lot of people might ask if there's a lot of like talking and then listening and reading and keeping track of timelines in the game. Like, how's the how would you say, like, is there enough interaction with the player? Is there a reason that that this is a game, that this couldn't be some other kind of like media? Because it just sounds like you're just running around talking to people all the time.
I think where that really comes in is it sounds minor, but the order of how you do things and that being a player choice is super important because your experience can be vastly different. I don't think it'll be better or worse, but whether or not you'll like certain characters. So there are certain characters that I didn't like, but you're kind of not necessarily supposed to. There are characters that won't mesh with you, but if there's a character that won't mesh with you, there's a character that will. It's almost like the Dynasty Warriors approach of all these different sci-fi stories being formed, and you'll probably like most of them. But of course, like I'm not hugely into magical girl tropes. So the character that had kind of a magical girl trope, I wasn't super interested in. But I didn't have to deal with that character for very long. I could go do other stuff. And then, of course, by the end of that character's storyline, I was hooked. Like they pulled it off in a story that I didn't normally like, and it was really good. So yeah, I think they handle the gaminess really well, especially when you're doing the battles. The battles are super fun and very unique, and the way they mesh together the narrative elements with those battles is really really cool.
Are there any like branching choices that you have to make?
Yes, so this is a type of game that's very popular in Japan of games where there are branching stories, but in order to finish the game, you see all of them. So you have some options as to like what you see first, and you will make choices, but you're going to see all of it by the end, if that makes sense. Like the goal is for you to see everything, but you do make choices, and they do have impact. It's just the order you learn things, and like dialogue will change to reflect that. But yeah.
Gotcha.
All right. Any final questions?
I don't
Great.
think so.
No. All right. Hey Brett, you've got a game.
I do have a game. I made it all by myself. Just kidding. Ghost of Tsushima takes place in, I believe, the Edo period of Japan, of the first Mongolian invasion of Japan, starting with the island of Tsushima. And of course, it's a Hollywoodized version of that, where you play as a man named Sakaijin, and you are not allowed to say his name in any other way because that's just doing it wrong. Um, and the whole entire game is basically like a segmented open world where there's kind of like three stages of exploration, and by the end of the game you have explored the entire island of Tsushima. um and through exploring you have some really baller sword combat with a bunch of different styles that you can switch between, you like pretty much seamlessly. um and a lot of interesting different combat to go through. There's a lot of things to find in the world that tie into the story. Um, and most of the side content of that story is better than the main story, to the point where like the side content is like some of the best storytelling I've seen in a game in a while. Lots of many tears were shed at certain points, and you start to really feel for the people of Tsushima, and for Jin and his not necessarily ragtag but very diverse group of characters that follow him around. And there's a lot of honor versus dishonor in the story, which bleeds into the gameplay as well. Uh, Very satisfying all around. Really gruesome at some points, and yeah, not much more to say on it than that. Although there is a free, as long as you bought the release version of the game, extra content pack that came out that is honestly just as good as the game that released at launch. That's basically just like a a looter slasher kind of with a raid and a bunch of smaller than
All right, you've got
Destiny
10 seconds
Destiny
out.
style
10
strikes.
seconds, Brett.
That's all I wanted to
All
say
right,
anyway.
great. Who's got the first question for Brett? All right, great. It'll be me. Hey, Brett, there's a lingering. I love Ghost of Tsushima, but there's one lingering issue I've always had with it. Why do three of the stances have super goofy looking sword holding positions?
Um, I'm gonna be honest with you. We had this conversation before where I think we were talking about how it wasn't realistic, and I was kind of grumbling in the corner, not saying anything because Sucker Punch did their research, I think, and not only did I not think that they look stupid, especially when you're fighting. When you're just standing still, and you're holding your sword over your head, maybe I guess that doesn't look like the most relaxed stance. But when you're fighting, the animations flow really well, and they are based off of real sword fighting techniques from not necessarily from that era, but the kind of sword that you use. It's not. It's they call it a katana because Americans know what a katana is, but it's not a katana. It's the thing before the katana. Um, and all the animations for the combat flow really well. Um, I guess if you're standing still, switching between the stances, you might look a little goofy. But during combat itself, it does flow and feel and look really, really, really cool.
Brett, why doesn't he just put the sword down when he's not in combat?
Because there could be enemies anywhere. It's an open world
Oh
video
hey,
game.
oh hey, Brett, I have a question.
Hello.
How would you say the technical performance of the game was?
Well, because since my name is not Wyatt, I had a great time and had zero problems with any of the game's technical performance.
I have a problem. Question. Question. How?
All right, I'm giving Brett back 30 seconds for that.
Oh,
Wyatt, just because you are the only one out of all of us that had technical problems with the game doesn't mean that the game is a bug-ridden mess that has a lot of technical problems. You're the only one that had technical problems.
No, Brett, I do have a serious question. Wouldn't
Okay.
you say that the game gets a little bit repetitive in terms of its mission structure after a while? And what do you think it does, in your opinion, to alleviate that?
I am of the viewpoint that, I like replaying games that I like a lot. Where if the loop of the game is good enough to keep me, satisfied for the length of the game, and it's just that good, I will be happy with it for as many times as I have to play it. It's really when it's not a good loop that I kind of start to feel upset playing, multiple playthroughs or even through one playthrough in some cases. And I don't think that Tsushima has that issue where even just the basic combat loop is boring. Not only because it's just really satisfying and there are those different unlockable stances that you gain over the course of the game, but you also get a lot of gadgets and other things that you can use that kind of surprised me that uh, really open up not only combat but also the exploration of the world in a lot of really cool different ways. So things do change and become more open to you as the game progresses.
Did you ever feel like you were properly incentivized to use different playstyles?
Um, I thought that they were gonna do a cool thing where, depending on how honorable you were or weren't, things would happen differently. But then I realized that maybe that would have been a lot different of a game. So I was happier with the fact that it just let me do the one cool play style instead. If that makes sense. I don't
Yeah,
want to spoil
makes
it.
sense.
So.
Did you ever feel like I had a question and then it completely just went out of my brain?
Brett, did you ever feel like Ryuzo got jibbed and should have had
Oh,
That
more
what I
appearances? I think what I actually mean is, like, do you ever think the villains feel oddly non-present during a lot of the main game?
and that does kind of bleed into the one complaint that I mentioned over the other parts of this podcast, that the main villain Koten Khan isn't bad, but he's not the best. But because he's the main villain, they have to give him the screen time over the more interesting villains that Jin has, like personal fights that he has to have with them. There's a lot of past friends, like the typical like things that you would have personal fights with as like a main character, and while they are really interesting, I agree that they don't get the screen time that they probably deserve in service of something that is not bad but not as good as they are.
All right, and that is your time. Good job, everyone.
oh, I just remembered my question.
Too bad.
You could ask him after the show.
Okay, cool.
But we got everything. I'll say, if Brett and Tess, if you guys think of nominees before next week, just
You
make
mean
sure to let us
Alex?
know to consider them.
I put a game.
Your smiley emoji is very much appreciated.
Oh no!
As your game.
That's evil.
All right. So, as always, during the show we do awards, and there's one award on this list that has stood out the entire time to all of us. And that award would be the Best Dog Award. And this is our show award, all right? We got to end with the Best Dog Award because there's
Best of show,
lots of
if
good
you will.
nominees. Our Best of Show, of course. So, Brett, you're the only one that put this one dog, so I'll let you go first.
Okay. You play the whole game of Okami as this dog, Amaterasu, and not only does she look really cool, but is the whole game as a dog is good. That's it.
Yeah. Brett, I would have your back, but I haven't finished Okami, and I haven't played it this year, so I can't. Right. Hey, Alex and Wyatt, you've got a good boy on your list.
We have
Why, yes.
Cerberus from Hades, who you can literally pet every single time you die and have to go back to Hades' throne room. And they also do a really fun thing with him near the end of the game that I'm not gonna say because it was really
Right.
interesting.
I also just enjoyed the little bits of lore around him as well. Because
Oh, of course.
how often do you have lore around a dog in a game that you can pet?
Of course.
Yep. And every time you pet him, he does this awesome little like shake, and it's really cute.
Gotta say, don't
Ooh.
forget the fact that he has tons of dialogue.
Yeah.
Yep.
Also, the reason for why you can only pet one head, graphics wise in the game.
Yeah, very interesting. All right. So, Tess, you and I, of the same mind here, there's a studio that embodies the essence of dogs, and that's got to be Naughty Dog.
Oh,
And
Yeah.
I gotta say, after all the dead dogs in Last of Us Part 2, I really gotta give those good boys props.
I was so sad every time I had to kill one of them.
But all the
Like, every
dogs in
time.
Last of Us Part 2, that's our vote.
Also, the one that you pet at the beginning
Ooh,
when you're
yeah,
with Jesse and you walk up to him, so good.
good dog. All right, that's our good dog award. There's not a specific winner of that award. If you're a dog, you won. That's
Thank God.
congratulations. You deserve it.
that award existing is the award. All right, so we've got some very minor, brief news to cover. Again, this slow news week because games are in that weird state of everyone kind of just getting back in the studio. So there's not a ton of news, and we're not going to go over a lot of it until next week. But there are some minor things to mention, I think. Awesome Games Done Quick, which is a speedrunning for charity thing, has raised $2,759,000
Oh,
Wow.
to Prevent Cancer Foundation as of now. And this came out
Hell yeah.
17 hours ago. So AGDQ, always really, really cool. Just want to give that a shout out. Some feel good news, especially considering a lot of the things that people in America are dealing with right now. We need some feel good news. So that's our feel good news for the week of Awesome Games Done Quick.
Wow.
Good. Everyone happy with charity games?
Yeah.
I'm glad.
And some more feel good news. We got Dishonored's co-creator is working on a new game with Arcane.
Ooh.
That's always
Okay.
good news. And Ask Iwata, a book that has been really, really lauded in Japan for being a super good like memoir of Iwata, is going to be published in English. So people that are interested in the late Nintendo president's writing will probably have a really good time with that. I've heard it's very, very good. So that's coming in. And you know, the last bit of feel good news, Minecraft Earth is closing down.
That's
Oh.
good news.
I don't know if anyone here played Minecraft Earth. It really didn't work.
Um,
It made me very sad the one
Oh,
time I
well.
tried to play
Oh.
it because it didn't function. It was a neat idea. It didn't really work. But as always, we end off the show with shout outs. So who's got their shout out ready?
I do. I'm gonna go.
Do it,
because
Wyatt.
Mine's ready to go. My shout out goes to whatever Galaxy Brain genius at Ubisoft decided to put in this awesome little area in Assassin's Creed Valhalla where it's a campfire and then a bunch of pages surrounding the campfire, and it's very clear that it's a bunch of people that sat down to play Dungeons and Dragons because they all have like character sheets and like a campaign book and stuff like that, and it's really really funny, and they all have notes like poking fun at each other in their like character sheet, and it's really really funny and cute.
All right. I got to give a shout out to I tried Borderlands 3's director's cut new mode this week. It's the arms race mode, which is basically a single player battle royale where you just hunt for loot and like almost a roguelike type deal, where if you get out, you get to keep the loot, but you gotta win essentially. So I was super skeptical on if that would be like worth the money for that kind of DLC. I think it's $15. You get a skill tree for every character, and you get the arms race mode. Arms race is super fun, and I really wish more games would try something like that because it's really cool. Because you have Salvador and Axton commentating you fighting the NPCs, and they just kind of commentate on all your actions. So it's really really cool to see like characters from Borderlands 2 interacting with your character while just in a fun battle royale PvE mode. Just a cool little mode. Who else has got something?
I do. That is tangentially related to what Wyatt said.
Wonderful.
Shout out to my D&D group that I just started DMing for this Friday.
Oh yeah. All right. Tess or Brett, you're on the spot. One of you.
Shout out to that guy who was selling Breath of Fire 3 and 4 on eBay for really cheap. I bought them. They're normally really expensive, and now I get to have them, and they could be mine.
All right. Tess, bring us home.
Shout out to Tyler for being active in the chat.
Oh yeah, of course. And that's a good time to mention now that the show's ending. We do live stream these shows, typically Sundays at 8 p.m. Eastern. And you can participate in the chat. We won't respond to chat actively, vocally. Some of us are in the chat, but
Yeah,
we don't talk to the chat just to make sure the podcast itself is staying consistent for those who just listen on other platforms. But yeah, we definitely appreciate people that show up for these. And yeah, as always, the podcast can be found Tuesday mornings on the podcast platform of your choice, as well as on YouTube. Everyone has a good week.
It's on YouTube. I didn't know that.
Yeah, podcast on YouTube. Last week we had a whole video portion to it. We did our fantasy games draft.
Yeah.
And you got very angry at me.
As I should. What's the?
You had to remind her.
She's not gonna forget
Oh, I
it.
love it. No, I'll never forget.